Hope you're having a wonderful day. It's Mac here, and today we have a really special treat for you. We're in Stuttgart at the Wilhelmina Zoo and Botanical Garden. The zoo part is awesome, but I'm here to see the botanicals. There are a lot of beds here. There are also some conservatories. So let's go check out this beautiful zoo and garden with the emphasis on the garden. I'm really impressed with the coloration of this particular bed because you can see that the color pattern, the palette is focused around purples and burgundies and just really a unique color palette. It matches because we're in the fall season, and I see beautiful dahlia, kind of fuchsia dahlia, purple dahlia, some begonias in there, beautiful coloration, but everything is this beautiful red coloration. I even see a nice red kale tucked in amongst the other plants. This is a very long border and it repeats these same colors over and over again. I even see a couple purple salvia, just things in the purple family, another large purple dahlia here. This is really a beautiful, beautiful bed. This large dahlia, and in Germany I see some of the largest dahlia that I see anywhere. I've seen some dahlia about 6 feet tall here before, so I'm not surprised to see very large dahlia. I love the use of the grasses as well, the burgundy grass. The coloration is burgundy, but I love the fact that the grass gives this border height. It makes it tall and makes it stand up. That there are not a lot of beautiful zoo animals here to observe as well. I want to see as many of these borders as I can, and when appropriate, I'll also show you some of the flamingos and other wildlife that's here at the zoo. The gardeners here have done a wonderful job with repeating colors across the flower beds. The other beds I showed you were purple, where you can see this is all in the yellow and orange family, and there's just a hint of red inside of some of the center of the blooms, but this bed is all about yellow and orange. I love the use of color to distinguish this bed from the other. It's repeated. Here's another version of that same bed. More of the orange and yellow, but this one is a little different as it has a bit of purple salvia tucked in. Yellow and purple go really well together. If you look at your color wheel, those two colors work really well together. And I think I see also some artichokes in here, which adds a bit of variety as far as shape and structure within this bed. And here are some beautiful cactus, also as impressive as the other borders. A cactus border, when appropriate, looks really wonderful. If you could have the right growing conditions to put in something like this in a smaller version in your own garden, it would be really beautiful. So this cactus bed is rooted into a substrate that is small pebbles, gravels. It actually looks like some Lacusa pond is in here, but it allows for some great drainage, and that's something that you need if you want to add cactus to your own garden. They would have to have a lot of great drainage for your cactus. They definitely don't want to sit with soggy feet. But this is a nice small cactus border. If you could add something like this to your garden, it would definitely be quite a statement. A thorny statement, but it would be beautiful. Okay, let's go into the first botanical house. And so this is, as I mentioned several times at this point, this is not just a zoo, but it's also a botanical garden. And we're starting into the conservatory here, looking at all of the beautiful cactus. This one is in bloom. That is really impressive. Now here's a cacti I've never seen before. Look at this one. It has a spiral growth pattern that is so unique. Serious. It's a really wonderful growth pattern with a spiral. These are some of the largest barrel cactus I've ever seen, and the barrel cactus go under different names. Of course, this is a very specific variety. I can't read most of the variety names because they are in German, but this is a very impressive cactus. These are some of the most impressive cactus specimens I've seen in any botanical setup anywhere. You can tell the cactus here are very well cared for and they are old. You don't get this amount of growth without a lot of time to go along with it. And here's some of those arboreal plants. Those look really beautiful, but this cactus behind it, which is grown up and is starting to cover the ceiling, just demonstrates the level of growth that they're able to get here. And every time I almost forget that I'm in a zoo, I'm reminded because I see something truly beautiful, which is the plants with the birds here. This is a beautiful bird. And moving past the birds and the cactus, we're moving into a more wet room, which is filled with magnificent bromeliads. This is a magnificent display of bromeliads. There's birds of paradise plants in here. This is a beautiful, beautiful botanical display. Tucked in amongst all the other plants is a really impressive selection of begonia. I've seen some tall tree type begonia, some really small begonia, and here are some of the begonia rex and other varieties. There are several varieties of begonia tucked in amongst other plants, and it looks really impressive. Look at this one with the stems with so many little spikes on those stems. Now here's a very common begonia. You can get this at your garden center. I see this one all over the place, but this is a larger version of it. And here's some more blooming here. Appear to be more of the begonia rex. Really impressive. And tucked in amongst the begonia, you have a really nice elephant ear. Now here's a very impressive monstera. I know people grow these in their home all the time as a house plant, but monstera grow in the wild. They're a large vining plant, and this is a much larger version than I've ever seen anyone able to achieve inside of their home. This is a really large monstera. What the head gardeners have done here is that they've layered in the plants with the colors, and it works so wonderfully together. You can tell how thought was placed into each placement for each plant, and the designs are absolutely beautiful, the way the plants are weaving in and out of each other, melding together to present a beautiful display of botanicals. And the temperature change as we leave the bromeliads and the begonias. This room is much cooler, so the plants here definitely have different growing conditions. And this is so impressive because I see jalapeno peppers, cayenne peppers, and I would never think to see peppers growing inside of such a wonderful conservatory. The gardeners reuse the same elements over and over to create harmony across the space. This entire section is filled with various types of very hot peppers. Now here are some regular bell peppers of some lightly hot jalapenos, but there are habanero and some other hot peppers here that are extremely hot. focusing in on those hotter varieties and different and unique varieties of peppers as well, growing amongst the bamboo, growing amongst these massive banana trees, and growing around the koi. This pepper display is truly unique. So this is much more of a temperate house. It is cooler in here. You have the palms growing in here, as well as the tall banana type trees, but a lot of palms and peppers. And the koi ponds here are really beautiful. I love the overall layout and display. It's so wonderfully put together. This display of peppers is really blowing my mind because I've never seen this many peppers before of different varieties in one place at one time. And there's actually a wonderful clematis vine which is hanging between these sections, and it hangs down. It's in bloom right now, and that is really creating a lot of the effect that you're going through a tight jungle space as you're entering into this section of the conservatory. I see many of these peppers are older than 1 year. You can tell that because they're a bit woody in the stems. You can actually keep peppers alive more than 1 year, but you have to bring them in before the frost touches the plant. And if you bring them in, keep them indoors, and you can keep the conditions right, you can set it back out the next year and it'll fruit for you again. It'll grow much larger and it will take on a slightly woody appearance. At least the stems will. I've had peppers that I've kept alive for up to 2 to 3 years at a time. And here's a perfect example of an older pepper plant. You can see that the stems are woody. There are canes there to support its growth. But this plant is about a meter, maybe a meter and a half tall, and it didn't get all this growth in 1 year. Right next to it is another plant about 2 meters tall, also a pepper plant. You can see those nice woody stems. So these plants have been kept alive for several years to grow to this height. Let's move on to the next section here. I'm so impressed with this conservatory. I can't wait to see what's next. And as we go through, the sections just keep continuing to get cooler. This is much cooler than even the last one we just left. More of a tropical rainforest here. I see ferns, other plants that you expect to see in cooler regions. More temperate growth conditions here, cooler, something I'd expect to see in around the sea. Oh my gosh, this is the largest selection of fuchsia I've ever seen anywhere. Wow. And these are large fuchsia. I've been to shows where you have small fuchsia on display, but these are full-size fuchsia plants, very old, and they've been here for a while. I'm looking at the size of these stems on some of these plants, the tree trunks on some of these plants. This is absolutely magnificent. There's so much beauty packed into this one space amongst these fuchsia varieties. I don't even know where to focus in. I'm going to go back and forth, walk back and forth through this room several times just to take it in over and over again, because this is impressive. Fuchsia growing up from the ground, fuchsia hanging from the ceiling. It is, I've never seen this many fuchsia. Oh wow, look at this one. These very demure petals, creamy peakish, beautiful. So wonderful. I never thought I would ever see this many fuchsia in bloom at one time. These plants have been perfectly coordinated to where they all bloom in all at once. And it's just beautiful in here. The colors, the pinks, the fuchsia, the color fuchsia, the reds, the burgundies, the whites, all the colors blending together. These plants are old, they're thriving, and it's just so impressive to see this level of care placed into maintaining these plants, the horticultural skills that it takes to keep all of this going, growing, and thriving is absolutely astounding. Hats off to the gardeners, horticulturalists, and the master gardeners who are maintaining the plants here. They're doing a phenomenal job. I've rarely seen such wonderful displays. Now this section is more classical European with the shaped U, large conical shaped U with the flower beds, borders running around the outside. Let's take a look around here. And here's a low border. Of course, you're going to see a lot of dahlia repeated, especially this time of year. They're all in bloom. Here's some begonia, very common. Very nice marigold, a dark, very bright orange marigold. I see some wonderful coleus there, asters, salvia. A lot of plants that you could get in any garden center and replicate this look for yourself. Now I love this burgundy coleus where you really get this dark, rich color. Heucheras there below that, so you get the contrast between the heuchera, which is this green color, kind of a little bit of chartreuse, with the veining, which is burgundy, and then you get the dark burgundy coleus right behind it. The veining in the heuchera, which is burgundy, and the coleus, that matches up wonderfully. Here you have again a bit of that yellow and purple together. Yellow and purple is a great color combination. They use a lot of different color coleus. Here's another variety here, multicolor with the varieties there. Impatiens look good. Just really nice color combinations, blending a lot of colors. Burgundy and silver, here's what's repeated. Just great colors. Two different color begonia here. Very impressive. Of course, at the end of this bed, you have one of my favorite plants, which are canna, and these are a little taller, not as tall as the varieties I see in the U.S. Those are still about 2 meters or 6 feet tall. This is really about right at a meter, but larger than the varieties I do see in the UK. Of course, as you continue around, I can see that you're going to get a repeat of those exact same plants over again. So let's cut across and see what else we can find in the gardens, some other garden bed displays. These are some really nice trimmed yew. I love the look of these, really beautiful. Now this pool is absolutely impressive. It puts me in mind of a Monet painting, Water Lilies. It's just so beautiful. Yes, it does remind me of the works of Monet. And here we have, again, repeated across this entire space, the purple bed, the purple border. You have zinnias in this case, not so many dahlia, but you have zinnia, again, that purple kale tucked in there. That is such a nice color palette to have with these burgundies and purples all blending and melding together. I love these similar color patterns that they've put together across this entire space. This entire zoo has just a great color palette to it, if you understand what I'm saying. Lantana, repeated with salvia, red and white. You can also get a hot lips, which has red and white blooms, but this is two separate salvia varieties. There are a lot of border plants here, and I love the border design. Not quite parterres, but the borders look really beautiful. Again, repeating the same plants over and over again, but using them in different ways to where in one space you have only yellow marigolds, and then another place you have marigolds mixed with small lantana. You have canna to statement on the end using grasses. Yellow and orange is repeated here, and then in other beds you have purple and burgundy is repeated. The fact that you use those repeating bed colors across the entire space creates a uniformity for the entire zoo and botanical garden. Now this plant doesn't look good, but I believe it's just because it's out of season. The leaves to me look like peony. Now these may be a variety of tree peonies that I'm not familiar with, and if they are peonies, then that makes sense. You can see the entire row of them. They're all a bit past, but if these are peony, then that means that back in the spring these would have been covered in beautiful blousy blooms. I could imagine how beautiful these would be, but I think these are tree peony, but just towards the end of the year they bloom in the spring. This time of year they just don't look quite as good, but I bet they were truly beautiful earlier in the year. I love the use of hosta here singularly by itself in a bit of a sheltered space. You have these hosta. They're all one variety. They're a bit passed over because this, again, we're heading into the fall. Hosta looks really great in the spring and early summer. By the time you get to late summer, the wind is beat it up, the sun has beat it up, so they don't look quite as good now. But again, earlier in the year, these hosta would have been really beautiful. And you could tell even a few weeks ago when they were in full bloom, they also still would have looked really good. Here, color blocking, plant blocking, because in this space, you just have ferns. And I think that you can add one plant and really make a statement. Here, they use one variety of fern, filled up this corner space, which creates a situation where you don't have to try to mow up in there. Ferns are growing thick, rich, full, and it makes a statement. So we've gone through one conservatory. I've come across a different one. This one is taller than the last one. Let's go through this conservatory as well. This is a zoo, but the botanicals get just as much respect as the animals here. It is such a wonderful display. And these plants are large. Wow, these are some very old cactus. These have been here for such a long time to grow to this size and this height, to fill this space so thoroughly. Just as I'm impressed with the tall and the massive, I'm also impressed with the small and the beautiful. This tiny little plant, which appears to be a type of a cactus or cacti, Blue Miracle. I love the coloration. It is almost blue. It's just small. It's just really, really impressive. I'm going to have to look this up to see if I can find a cultivar of it somewhere, because I would love to add this to my collection. Truly impressive plant. And here's a selection of just ferns. I love the separation of species, plant varieties, just off to themselves. The fuchsia were beautiful, and here we are with just ferns. There are almost as many ferns growing on the wall as there are ferns growing out of the ground. It's a very large fern tree. I don't think I've ever seen one with a stem or a trunk quite this thick. The width of that trunk signifies how old and impressive that fern tree is. Here's a plant I don't see outside the U.S. very often, but that's a crepe myrtle. You'll find those all over the U.S., especially across the southeast. But yeah, I don't see many crepe myrtles here. That's a nice addition for me. I see another one in a pot right here. Is another crepe myrtle. Really great plants. Nice trees. But I don't see them propagated very much outside of the US. Here's one of my favorite plants that appears to be either a crinum or agapanthus. It's not blooming. The leaves are leathery and thick, so it's putting me in mind more of a crinum than agapanthus, but it could be either. The growth pattern on both are very similar. You can put either in a pot and create this look if you put many bulbs in there. But these could be crinums. I'm thinking that they are more crinums just because those leaves are so thick. But agapanthus is another nice plant. I haven't seen many agapanthus here, so it could just be crinums. Either way, really impressive. These leaves are thinner, so these could be agapanthus, and those thicker leaves could be crinum. If you could put them side by side, there would be very little visual difference between the two. Saw these sunflowers from a distance, and I love these multi-head varieties of sunflowers. These are the tall ones. Look at that, about 3 meters tall, easily over 2 meters tall. But I love the different color varieties. There's some dark burgundy there, some dark orange, and then the classic yellow. But those multi-head varieties, the tallest one is really the most impressive. Those heads are beautiful and kind of that burnt orange color. I love that. If you have the space for them, sunflowers can make a magnificent statement. And if you don't have the space, they can look really weird in the wrong placement. But here in this placement, amongst these other plants, amongst this bed, they fit right in. Plant that I do love is Coleus. Now, this is a different variety than the variety I saw below in the beds, but look at the coloration of these leaves. You have this outside green, burgundy fading into that fuchsia, and these leaf colors just look so rich. It almost looks as though you could paint with that color. Just take those leaves and brush it across something, that color will rub right off. That's how rich the coloration is on these Coleus. Now, in the US, you could buy Coleus as seeds. There are vendors that sell them, whereas in the UK, I've only seen them available as small start plants. But in the US, you can buy them from seed. The seeds are really small, but I've always had great success with growing Coleus from seed. I'm not sure how they do it here in Germany, but I do see they do have several variety of Coleus available, where I love that darker color. And here you have this one with a bit of yellow tinging on the leaves here. And Coleus is all about the foliage. The foliage. The blooms are small and demure. You can see those tiny little purple blooms there. That's not why you get Coleus. You get Coleus for the foliage. And so overall, I love this bed. I want to say it's almost eclectic because there's just so much packed in here, and there's so many really large plants. But it makes sense because you have the sunflowers across the back, and these are the 12-foot, the 3 and 4 meter tall sunflower plants. And you have here this really large musa, this large banana plant. I don't think this one actually produces bananas. You have the lantana here, and the grass to give a bit more height. So this is a very tall vertical bed with the plants that are here. So it's a large bed, really grabs your attention from a great distance. It's up high on a hill, so you can see it from a long ways across the zoo here. So I understand why you would place it here, and I understand how it fits. It does look good, and you have some small palm varieties here, but it is a large, massive, thick-bodied plant bed, and actually I love it. You can see the size of this sunflower. Look at that stem. To think that this all grew just in this one growth season. And here's that head. Look at that. That is where all your sunflower seeds are going to come from. But yeah, I've never been able to get one this large to grow. I've grown some really beautiful ones, but not one quite this large. But yes, this is a beautiful sunflower. And all of them really look good. But that multi-head sunflowers, I think that's definitely the way to go. You get more bang for your buck. If you look at this plant, there's that one head at the top, and then down below it you can see these other heads that will continue to bloom. That first one will be the largest, and the others are all going to be a little bit smaller, but you'll still get more than one bloom, more bang for your buck. So if you're buying sunflowers, get those varieties that are multi-headed sunflowers. Now here's something I didn't expect to see. This is the potato plant. This is the vining potato plant. Doesn't really produce potatoes, but again, just like the Coleus, it's all about the foliage. And I haven't seen this really since I left the US, so I see it here in Germany. I don't think I've seen it much in the UK. But look at these. Beautiful colorations, dark burgundies and purples, kind of blending in a little bit of chartreuse on the lighter color ones there. But these are all about foliage, and they kind of great ground cover, and they produce a beautiful color. These did grow in very thick. I wonder why they didn't grow in very thick, but they are very impressive in coloration. And although we're not in the season for bloom, this wisteria, can you imagine what this looks like? Look at the larger size of this stem. So when you get wisteria this large, you definitely have to have steel pipes to hold it up to keep it in place. And these are hard, large trellis. This trellis has been completely covered by this wisteria. But when it's blooming, you're going to have those wisteria blooms hanging down, and that is going to be really impressive. You can see this is a purple wisteria because that one little section is blooming right now, right there. But when this is in full bloom, it's beautiful. The problem with this wisteria, it just continues to grow, continues to get larger and larger, and you need quite the trellis to hold it up, or it is going to fall down. It's going to pull down a wall. You can't let something this heavy grow along your house. But where you set the proper conditions for it, again, bold statement, really impressive. Now this is an impressive plant. I love the variegation on the leaves. It appears to me as though this is a variegated rose of Sharon. I've seen a lot of variegated rose of Sharon. That's what this looks like. If you're sure about that, drop that down in the comments to let me know. But to me, it looks like a variegated rose of Sharon. Either way, I love the variegation. The petals, kind of this peachy pink color. I think that's good. It would be really nice if the color of the petals was like a darker purple, just a darker red that contrasts against the variegation a little more. But this color variant, still impressive, still impressive. Easily one of the most impressive and thorough botanical gardens, and it's a zoo, that I've ever seen. Because just when I thought I've seen all of the houses, I've gone through all the botanical houses, all the conservatories, I come across a massive one here that I didn't even know was here. And this is the Amazon house. So we're gonna have to walk through the tropical Amazon house. And it is huge, really tall. Let's go take a look. Oh, this is nice and toasty and warm in here. This is a true tropical house. I called a variegated hibiscus or rose of Sharon. It just took a while for that name to come back to me. I've come back to the Fuchsia house to finish up this video because this is the most impressive display. I absolutely love it. This is the most Fuchsia I've ever seen anywhere, ever. Hey, if you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow along. Go watch another video on the channel. I go to a lot of gardens and I want you to go with me. Until next time, take care.